welcome to the deep dive. You know, we're all swimming in this constant flood of information, right? And it's genuinely tough to figure out what really matters, to get those insights you can actually use. That's what we try to do here. Cut through all that noise, boil down the key stuff from, well, usually a whole stack of sources, and hopefully deliver some of those aha moments, maybe even a few surprising facts along the way. So today we're diving deep into something really critical in AI development, but maybe a bit overlooked sometimes. It's called dog fooding. Specifically, we're looking at Anthropic's Claude Code. It's had some pretty remarkable success. And our mission today really is to understand how figuring out your own problems inside a company can actually lead to creating these breakthrough products that can, potentially redefine whole markets.
Okay, so first off, dog fooding. It's kind of a funny term, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, a bit visceral.
It basically just means a company using its own products internally. Like the classic example is the dog food company boss actually eating the dog food.
Right, to prove it's good enough, or safe enough at least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in tech, it means everybody inside the company, developers, sure, yeah, but also marketing, legal, everyone, you're actually using the thing they're building day to day. And for AI companies right now, this seems like it's more than just, a quirky policy. It feels pretty transformative, especially because these models are so new. We're all still figuring out what they can really do.
That's absolutely right. It's not just some operational tick box exercise. It's really emerging as a strategic cornerstone for innovation, particularly in AI, where everything is moving so incredibly fast. And the story of Claude Code, it really hints that its creation wasn't driven by, the usual market research reports or some grand strategic plan. It seems to have come from something much more organic, much more powerful, actually.
Which was?
Anthropic's own internal needs, problems they were facing. It really underlines this idea that sometimes, the best product ideas are right there in your own backyard. You just have to be looking.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Claude Code. It's used by, tens of thousands of developers now? How did it actually begin? Was it, like you said, a big strategic push? Did they spot a gap in the market?
Well, here's what's so interesting. No, it wasn't. Not in the traditional sense. The sources say it sprang from a pure internal need. Just something the team inside Anthropic realized they needed.
Huh. So what was that need?
Think about it. They're building these incredibly advanced AI models.
Right.
And they apparently got to a point where they needed better tools just to understand and effectively use their own creations.
Okay, so they needed tools to manage their own tools, essentially.
Pretty much. And that direct lived experience, that's key. It meant the product, Claude Code, was designed from day one to solve real pain points. The exact frustrations their own engineers and researchers were feeling. They weren't theorizing about some abstract user persona. They were the first users. They knew the friction points intimately. So the design, it just inherently cut straight to the core issues developers face because, I had to solve their issues first.
That makes sense. It's solving a known problem because you're living it. But it's still pretty amazing that the initial goal was, as the source puts it, simply to enhance the working efficiency of Anthropic's own internal teams. And it sounds quite modest.
It does sound modest, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially for a product that then goes on to get, 110,000 developer users in just 4 months after going public. How does that kind of humble internal focus translate into such massive external adoption?
I think it's because of that foundation. When you're building something to fix your own real everyday problems, the things slowing you down, the annoying bits of the workflow you're forced to get it right, you have to deal with the messy practicalities. This means you end up with a really authentic problem solution fit right from the get-go. You're not guessing what users might want. You know what's needed because you need it yourself. It cuts out all the theoretical fluff and leads to something genuinely useful, genuinely valuable. And that kind of authentic value, it tends to resonate outwards, doesn't it? As Claude Code clearly did.
Right, so let's get practical. How did this dog fooding actually work day to day at Anthropic? You mentioned their own developers were the first batch of users. What did that look like in practice?
Well, it created what the source calls an extremely tight feedback loop, which makes perfect sense, right?
How so?
The team actually developing Claude Code, they were using Claude Code to write and improve Claude Code.
Okay, wow. That's pretty meta.
It is. And think about what that does to the development process. It's completely transformative. Every bug they encountered, every feature they wished it had, every little inefficiency, they felt it themselves immediately in their own workflow.
So no need to wait for user reports or beta testing. Feedback weeks later.
Exactly. The feedback was instantaneous and incredibly relevant because it directly impacted their ability to build the tool faster and better. It basically became this continuous self-improving cycle, a machine refining itself in real time.
That sounds incredibly powerful. Can you give us some specific examples? How were the internal developers actually using it?
Yeah, definitely. The source mentions engineers using things like automatic acceptance mode and autonomous loops. Basically, they could set Claude Code up to not just write code, but also run tests on that code, see if it worked, and then iterate on it kind of on its own.
So almost letting the AI drive parts of the coding process.
That's the idea. They could give it quite abstract problems and apparently get back solutions that were maybe 80% complete, which meant the engineers could then focus their energy on the tricky final 20%, the refinement, the architectural decisions. There's a great little anecdote in the source about Vim key bindings, those keyboard shortcuts lots of developers use.
Sure, yeah.
Apparently, Claude Code itself autonomously built about 70% of that feature, and it wasn't even a top priority project. It just sort of did it based on understanding the need. That really shows its capacity for independent problem solving.
That's wild. Yeah. So it's not just suggesting snippets, it's actually building significant chunks of functionality.
Exactly. And it changed the workflow dramatically. Instead of spending ages writing detailed design documents before any code gets written, engineers could just say, hey, Claude Code, whip up 3 different ways to do this. Then they could compare actual working prototypes almost immediately and make much better decisions faster.
Okay, so that's the core dev team. But you mentioned this had ripple effects. How did it impact other technical teams at Anthropic, like safety team?
Right, the impact there sounds pretty profound. For safety engineering, the source says Claude Code became an indispensable part of how they handled incidents, like when things go wrong.
Indispensable how?
Get this. It apparently reduced the time it took them to manually troubleshoot code and resolve operational events from around 15 minutes down to approximately 5 minutes.
Wow, that's a huge time save, tripling their speed, basically.
It's massive, especially when you're dealing with critical incidents. They also used it for things like reviewing infrastructure code, like Terraform plans. They could ask Claude Code questions about the potential impact of changes, like what might we regret about deploying this?
So using it as a kind of proactive safety check.
Precisely. It created much tighter feedback loops between development and safety, cutting down those delays where developers are just waiting for a security sign-off. And it wasn't just small stuff. The source mentions this team used Claude Code to implement half of their custom/commands, little shortcuts used in chat systems across the entire company code base.
Okay, that's impressive. What about the other teams? Data infrastructure, maybe?
Yeah, another big transformation there. The data infrastructure team supports everyone else with data analysis, right? Mm-hmm. Claude Code apparently completely changed how they supported the non-technical teams.
Non-technical teams using complex data tools. How did that work?
So imagine someone on the finance team. They need specific data, maybe presented in a certain way for a report. Previously, that might involve back and forth with the data team, explaining requirements, waiting for queries to be written.
Right, a potentially slow process.
Exactly. But with Claude Code, finance folks, people with, and the source emphasizes this, no programming experience could just describe the workflow they needed in plain English. Just type it out.
Claude Code would?
It would automate the whole thing. It could figure out which dashboards to query, retrieve the right information, run complex database queries, and even generate formatted Excel spreadsheets. It would even prompt the user if it needed more info, like asking, okay, what date range do you need this for?
That's incredible. It's like giving everyone their own data analyst. Democratizing data access, really.
That's a great way to put it. It empowered people across the company to do things they simply couldn't do before. And there was this one specific aha moment mentioned. During a pretty serious Kubernetes cluster failure, basically, the system that runs their applications was having major problems.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
It does. New applications couldn't start up. Instead of immediately needing a network specialist to dive in, the teams actually fed screenshots from their monitoring dashboards into Claude Code.
They showed it pictures of the problem.
Apparently, yes. And Claude Code analyzed them, diagnosed the issue, something called pod IP address exhaustion, basically running out of network addresses, and then guided the team step by step through the Google Cloud user interface on how to fix it. It even gave them the exact commands to run.
Without needing a specialist on hand immediately.
Exactly. Without needing a network specialist, as the source says,
right.
It just highlights so vividly how this deep internal use didn't just speed things up, It actually created entirely new capabilities and resilience for the teams.
Okay, this is fascinating. We've seen how engineers and technical teams used it, which maybe you'd somewhat expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned earlier, and this is where the source says it gets really interesting, is the widespread use by non-technical teams, people far outside the usual coding roles. What kinds of things were they doing with it?
This is where the story gets truly remarkable, I think. Take the legal team, for example. The source makes a point of saying they had no coding background, zero. Yet they found Claude Code solving problems they never thought could be automated.
Like what kind of problems? Legal automation sounds complex.
Well, some were internal tools, but one story is incredibly personal and impactful. A member of the legal team, in less than an hour, used Claude Code to build a predictive text application for a family member who had a speech impediment.
Wow, in an hour, with no coding background.
Yeah. The app apparently used the phone's built-in speech-to-text, suggested likely sentence completions, and could even speak the chosen reply aloud. It filled a gap that even specialized speech therapists had pointed out. Just an incredibly human application built by someone on the legal team.
That's amazing. That really hits on the potential. What about their internal legal work?
They also prototyped tools more directly related to their jobs. Things like a phone tree system, an automated directory to help employees find the right lawyer within the company for their specific issue. And they even built little G Suite applications to automate things like compiling weekly team updates or tracking the legal review status for different products. Stuff that simplifies project management basically with a single click.
So automating away the administrative headaches.
Exactly. Reducing friction, freeing up time for actual legal work.
Okay, legal team. Who else?
Then there's the growth marketing team. Get this. A single person on that team, also non-technical, used Claude Code to achieve what the source describes as a 10x increase in their creative output efficiency.
10 times. How? What were they doing? Marketing creative seems like a human task.
Well, they built this really clever workflow. They could feed Claude Code a CSV file, basically a spreadsheet containing hundreds of their existing online ads. Claude Code would analyze them, identify the ones that weren't performing well, and then generate new versions of those ads. And it could do this while respecting really strict character limits, like 30 characters for a title, 90 for the description, which is common in online ads. It used specialized sub-agents, apparently, little focused AI assistants, to handle these specific tasks.
So it was automating the ad iteration process, testing new copy automatically.
Pretty much. Generating hundreds of variants in minutes instead of someone having to manually write and tweak them across different platforms. And they didn't stop there. They also developed a plugin for Figma, which is a popular design tool. This plugin could look at a design layout, identify the text boxes for titles and descriptions, and then programmatically generate maybe up to 100 different ad variations just by swapping out the text.
So turning a visual design into tons of ad options instantly.
Instantly. What used to take hours of tedious copy pasting, the source says, now took half a second per batch.
That's insane efficiency.
It really is, the overall impact. Creating ad copy went from taking about 2 hours down to just 15 minutes. That freed up the team massively, letting them focus on higher level strategy instead of execution grunt work. It essentially let a small team operate like a much, much larger one.
Okay, legal marketing.
Yeah.
What about product design? There's often this friction between designers and engineers, right?
Yeah.
Getting designs implemented accurately. Did Claude Code help there?
Hugely, it seems. The product design team really leveraged it to bridge the traditional gap between design and engineering, as the source puts it.
How do they bridge that gap?
For one, designers could actually make minor visual adjustments directly in the code themselves using Claude Code. Things like tweaking fonts, changing colors, adjusting spacing. Simple stuff, but stuff that usually requires a back and forth cycle with an engineer.
So cutting out the middleman for small visual changes.
Exactly. It eliminated those tedious feedback loops and the need for super detailed design spec documents for every little change. But even more powerfully, designers could apparently just paste images of their design prototypes, like screenshots from Figma, directly into Claude Code. And it could generate fully functional prototypes from those images.
Wait, from a static image to working code?
That's what the source implies. Functional enough that engineers could immediately understand the intended interaction, the flow, and start iterating on real code, rather than trying to interpret static pictures or rely on lengthy verbal explanations.
That must have sped things up enormously.
It did. They give an example of a complex project that touched many parts of the code base removing some kind of research preview label from the product. Normally, that kind of cross-cutting change would take maybe a week of coordination meetings.
Right, getting everyone aligned.
But using Claude Code to understand the code base and plan the changes, they did it in 2 30-minute meetings.
A week down to an hour.
Effectively, yeah. It represents a really fundamental shift in how design and engineering could collaborate. The source estimates it led to 2-3 times faster execution speeds overall for the product team. And when you step back and look at all these examples, legal, marketing, design, safety, data, these incredibly diverse, sometimes surprising applications, it just powerfully demonstrates Claude Code's versatility, doesn't it?
It really does.
And it underlines that core idea. If you build something truly useful for your own diverse internal needs, chances are it's going to be incredibly useful for a whole lot of other people and companies facing similar, analogous challenges out in the world. It proves the concept from the inside out.
Now, this intense internal usage didn't just create a useful product. Yeah. The sources talk about these powerful feedback loops, these flywheels that spun up. Can you explain the model flywheel concept?
Yeah, this is a really interesting consequence of the dogfooding approach. Because everyone internally was using Claude Code for their daily work, they were always interacting with the latest research model snapshot.
Meaning the newest, freshest version of Anthropic's underlying AI.
Exactly. Whatever the AI research team was working on, the internal users of Claude Code were effectively beta testing it in real time as part of their normal jobs. And what's fascinating here, as the source points out, is that this gave the teams direct feedback on model behavior changes during the core AI development cycle itself. They'd notice immediately if a new model version was better or worse at certain tasks, if it had weird quirks, if it was faster or slower.
Ah, so the AI researchers got instant, real-world feedback on their work, not just lab results.
Precisely. It's an advantage they apparently hadn't really experienced before. This constant real-time feedback loop on the core model created this powerful self-reinforcing cycle, the model flywheel. Right. Better models made Claude Code more useful, which led to more usage, which generated more feedback, which helped make the models even better, and so on.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about the data flywheel? How did that contribute?
So the extensive internal use of Claude Code generated a huge amount of data about how people actually used it, what tasks they used it for, where they got stuck, what features were most valuable. This revealed deep, real user behavior patterns.
Not just surveys or assumptions, but actual usage data.
Right. And this data directly informed and guided the product development priorities for Claude Code itself. They weren't guessing what features to build next. They could see what users were trying to do and where the tool could be improved to help them. And the value was tangible. The source mentions some engineers were generating thousands of dollars of value daily just through automating parts of their work with Claude Code. That's not just theoretical, it's measurable economic impact within Anthropic.
That kind of data must be incredibly valuable for product decisions.
Absolutely. And it led to a really critical insight. The data showed that Claude Code was actually serving two quite different but equally important user needs.
Which were?
For the developers, the technical folks, it was primarily about workflow enhancement, making their existing jobs faster, more efficient, less tedious.
Okay, boosting productivity.
Right. But for the non-technical users, the legal team, marketing, finance, it was offering a brand new set of capabilities. It wasn't just making their existing work faster, it was enabling them to do things that were previously impossible for them. Those, aha, I can be a developer moments.
Empowering them with new skills.
Exactly. And understanding this dual value proposition, efficiency for some, empowerment for others, was apparently super important. It significantly shaped how they thought about Claude Code's positioning and its future development roadmap, especially as they prepared to launch it externally.
So speaking of the launch, how did all this internal success and learning translate into actually releasing Claude Code to the public?
Well, the initial release in February 2025 was framed as a limited research preview. But the key thing is, it wasn't just some marketing gimmick. The source calls it a natural extension of the value they had already thoroughly proven inside the company.
So they were confident it worked because they'd seen it work for themselves extensively.
Precisely. They were essentially giving external users access to the same problem-solving power that their own teams have been benefiting from for months, and the external users saw that value quickly. The source mentions tasks that might normally take, say, 45 minutes of manual work being done in one go by Claude Code. That's an immediate, obvious benefit.
And then the full public launch came later.
Yeah, in May 2025. And significantly, that full launch included critical new features. Things like integrations with GitHub Actions, allowing Claude Code to perform tasks automatically in the background, and native plugins for popular code editors like VS Code and JetBrains.
Were those features just obvious additions, or did they come from the internal use too?
Very much from the internal use. The source emphasizes that these expansions weren't just random additions. They were direct responses to the real usage patterns they had observed internally. For example, they saw how teams were trying to use Claude Code for pair programming, or how they wanted to automate routine background tasks. So the new features directly addressed those actual workflow needs that had surfaced through intense dogfooding. It ensured the public product was already tailored to solve real problems people were facing.
Okay, this whole story is incredibly compelling. So if we try to boil it down, what's the blueprint here? What are the core lessons from Claude Code's success that maybe listeners could apply, whether they're building products or just managing teams?
Well, the source material itself actually does a good job of distilling this. It identifies 5 key pillars, basically, that were critical to Claude Code's success, and I think they offer really actionable insights.
Okay, let's hear them. What's pillar number 1?
First, solve your own problems first. It sounds simple, right? But Anthropic tackled their own daily headaches. The safety team needing faster incident response, the legal team wanting automation without code, marketing needing to scale creative output. Because they solved their problems, the solution was naturally applicable to the real world. It wasn't theoretical.
Right. Scratch your own itch, and you'll likely find others have the same itch.
Exactly. Avoids building solutions for imaginary problems. Second pillar, cross-functional adoption. The fact that it wasn't just engineers using it, but safety, legal, marketing, design. Everyone. That was crucial.
Why was that so important?
Because it robustly proved the tool's broad applicability. It showed this wasn't just a niche gadget for coders, it was a versatile platform solving fundamental issues across very different job functions. That gives you real confidence it will resonate widely outside the company too.
Makes sense. What's number 3?
Third, high intensity, intensive use. Remember the thousands of dollars of value daily. That wasn't just casual use. People were relying on Claude Code for critical, high-stakes parts of their jobs. This intense real-world dogfooding pushed the tool to its limits, revealing its true strengths and weaknesses in a way that, limited beta testing just never could. It stress-tested the value proposition.
Okay, so deep, real usage, not just surface-level testing. Number 4.
Fourth, continuous improvement in daily use. This goes back to that tight feedback loop. Because the Claude Code developers were also daily users, every improvement they made directly benefited their own work. There's a strong incentive, as the source puts it, to constantly make it better.
Their own productivity depended on it.
Exactly. It perfectly aligned development priorities with genuine user needs. It took the guesswork out of the product roadmap because the developers were the users feeling the pain points.
And the final pillar, number 5.
Fifth, real success stories are the best promotion. When Anthropic went public, their marketing wasn't just abstract feature lists or hypothetical use cases. They focused on sharing the authentic stories from their own teams.
Like the legal team's assistive app or the safety team's time savings.
Precisely. The marketing team's 10x efficiency boost. These were real solutions to real problems, documented internally, and that built authentic credibility. Potential customers could see concrete examples of the tool delivering real value, which resonates much more powerfully than generic marketing claims.
So putting it all together, this story, it really feels like it's about more than just Claude Code. It's suggesting a different way to think about building AI products, maybe.
I think so. The source frames it as potentially a new paradigm, shifting the focus away from just trying to identify a market opportunity first towards empowering your internal teams first. Letting innovation bubble up from within by giving people tools to solve their own immediate problems, building from the inside out. It drives home this idea that maybe the best products, especially in a field as new and complex as AI, don't always come from poring over market research reports or just reacting to competitors.
Where do they come from?
Often, they emerge from that simple but incredibly powerful practice of building solutions for the headaches and hurdles you face every single day in your own work. When a company truly commits to being its own first, toughest customer really living with its own products development stops being about speculation. It becomes about genuine, tangible problem solving. And that shift from guesswork to lived experience is often where industry-changing innovations are born. It's about creating authentic utility because you needed it yourself.
Well, that really brings us to the end of, I think, a truly fascinating deep dive today. The big takeaway seems crystal clear. Dog fooding. particularly in this fast-moving world of AI, it's way more than just some internal process. It's really a core product strategy, a way to build trust, be transparent, and ultimately create tools that genuinely make a difference because you started by solving your own problems.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. You know, we see so many flashy AI demos, so many bold claims out there, but perhaps the companies that will truly shake things up, the ones that will really enhance how we work and live, maybe they're the ones most intensely using, critiquing, and improving their own AI tools right now, because they're building based on genuine need, not just hype. So maybe ask yourself, what are those daily frustrations, those inefficiencies you deal with in your job, in your life? Could looking at them through an AI lens like Anthropic did internally reveal the seed of the next breakthrough? Maybe your own dog food solution is just waiting to be developed.
That's a great thought to end on. Thank you all for joining us on the deep dive. We hope you'll take these insights, reflect on them, and maybe think about how that dog fooding spirit could apply to the challenges you face. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.